We're now less than 2 months out before Iowa, and Republicans who love to rally behind a frontrunner still lack a consensus choice for president. Two of the biggest names in Republican politics have cast their lots with different candidates today. Pat Robertson endorsing Rudy Giuliani, and former presidential candidate Sam Brownback endorsed Senator John McCain out in Iowa. And they are not the only candidates making strong plays to be the choice of social conservatives. So given that, Karen, two questions. Out of Brownback and Robertson, which one is the bigger coup, and does it matter at all?
Both very interesting questions, Rick. Let's start first with Robertson. It seems like he could actually be a bigger boost for Rudy Giuliani's campaign. Obviously, Rudy Giuliani's had some trouble with social conservative voters because of his positions on abortion and gay rights, and this could give him some cover. He can point to Robertson and say, look, he still endorses me despite all of this. Now, for Senator Brownback, he's not in the race anymore. He bowed out a couple weeks back with very little money, very little impact on the polls. So how big of a name is he that he actually could give John McCain a bump around the country? Now, maybe he can in Iowa with social conservative voters who were drawn to him, and maybe he will have a little bit of an impact. But whether or not these two endorsements, like you said, how big are they? We're not really sure. These are just two people that can go out there. Can they actually bring voters out to support the candidates? That remains to be seen. But I think we should turn now to Trent Duffy, a Republican strategist and former White House spokesman, to talk about this issue in the broader sense. Trent, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Karen.
Let's look at the evangelical vote. Is this a cohesive voting bloc that we've seen over the last 2 decades and a couple election cycles, and are they still important for the Republican nomination?
Well, sure, they're important for the Republican nomination, but as far as your first question about whether they're cohesive, I think the answer really is no. It depends on what issues are at the top of the national priority list at the time the vote is taken. They can be, certainly. Values is a top concern, then the evangelical vote's going to be critical. If security is the top of the priority list, then you're going to see some fracturing, which I think you're kind of seeing right now. But as far as today's topic, I think the clear winner is Mayor Giuliani, and not just from an evangelical vote perspective, but from a geographical perspective. Look at South Carolina, which is a target that he is putting a lot of priority on.
Trent, it seems that I agree with you, the Brownback endorsement is more expected. It seems more in line with what you'd expect out of Senator Brownback to go with someone who's pro-life, their longtime Senate colleague. Sure. But Pat Robertson, I mean, this is really a coup for Rudy Giuliani, isn't it? It's hard to try to get into Pat Robertson's head. What do you think he is thinking here now, supporting someone who is avowedly pro-choice on the abortion issue and has had a lot of questions raised about his positions on gay rights in the past? What do you think his calculation is here?
Well, I've never tried to get inside Pat Robertson's head. I'll leave that to others. But I mean, I think it is a huge victory for Mayor Giuliani, and I think it's an especially big blow to Mitt Romney, who has been really targeting South Carolina as well. And I think that coming at this point, after Romney has really put a hard push to secure himself atop of the values voter list, this comes as a big blow to his campaign, especially in South Carolina. And if you look at how it's going to play out maybe in the primaries, you look at the Iowa, New Hampshire, Michigan, you know, maybe Romney holds on and wins those, but then what happens? Then you have Romney against Clinton, that's what the papers are going to be saying, and Romney doesn't match up too well against Clinton. It's going to cause a panic amongst the Republican voters, which is the kind of reaction I think the Giuliani camp wants to see going into South Carolina and Colossal Tuesday, when you have states like New Jersey, California, and other states where Giuliani does really well.
Trent, these endorsements today are obviously going to be dominating the political headlines, and like you said, this is not good for Mitt Romney. But how does John McCain and how does Rudy Giuliani take these endorsements and actually translate it into voters showing up? And do these two endorsees have that much influence that they'll actually show up on doorsteps?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, I agree with your analysis, Karen, about Senator Brownback. It's not a surprise that he would, endorse his fellow senator. I mean, one thing about Senator McCain and pro-life, we haven't discussed stem cell research, which is a big turnoff for the life community, as you know. And that's something that a button that any of the opponents can push at any time. As far as Robertson's endorsement and the ability to turn out votes, I agree that it just gives the it gives the base the cover, or whatever you want to call it, to support his candidacy. I mean, one thing we haven't discussed is who can beat Senator Clinton. Giuliani is clearly positioning himself as the one best able to do that. And nothing is going to motivate the evangelical base or the values base more than a Clinton for president campaign.